Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, late last year, on the 15th of November, a series of terrorist attacks took place in Paris. In scenes of appalling destruction and cruelty, 130 innocent civilians were killed as bombs were detonated on the streets of the city and in one of its most celebrated theatres. These attacks were inspired by the poisonous rhetoric that ISIS preaches and the perverse ideology it promotes. Ladies and gentlemen, the actions of ISIS are abhorrent, its values are abominable, and its ideas are an insult to our common humanity. No one on this side of the House wishes to see ISIS remain as a force for evil in this world. We simply question the orthodoxy that Western intervention is the solution. And that's why I'm very proud to propose this motion, although I certainly never thought it would mean I would speak on the same side of the House as George Galloway. In my speech tonight, I will make two arguments. First, that Western military intervention will not solve the problem of ISIS, and secondly, that it will come at a terrible human cost if we choose to carry it out. But before I do so, it is my pleasure to introduce the opposition speakers for tonight's debate. Tycho Onash hails from the Netherlands and is a man of great learning and culture. He's fluent in innumerable languages and is a fellow member of Standing Committee. I tried long and hard to think of a joke about Tycho, but when it comes to funny stories, he's just quite dull. Nonetheless, I can confirm that beneath that occasionally dry exterior is a thoroughly decent man who has become a good friend. And so, to this most international of speakers, I say bonne chance, buona sorte, viel Glück, and good luck for your speech tonight. Next in opposition comes Stefan Jensen, a Norwegian MBA student who hopes one day to join the military. Sometimes Stefan's combat persona emerges in unexpected situations. Over the Christmas holidays, when the Union Committee was playing a game of Mafia, because we are that cool, Stefan refused to join on the grounds that he only kills people in real life. And in confirmation of his toughness, he's also tried to claim ethnic minority status because he is a Viking. I'm not sure if he's been successful in this, but I do hope his speech is a success. Please just don't kill me afterwards. Following Stefan is Lieutenant General Sir Graham Lamb, a retired Army officer whose many achievements include triumph at the 1975 Army Bobsleigh Championships. He's incredibly experienced and superlatively well qualified to speak in this debate. And in other words, quite the opposite of me, since I'm someone who's chosen to spend 4 years of their life studying Latin and Greek, and I can confirm I'm qualified for absolutely nothing. Last of all, we have Lieutenant General Robert Mood, who, as the most senior military-ranked Norwegian in this room, is basically a better version of Stefan. As head of the UN supervision mission in Syria, his insights in this debate are likely to be invaluable, and I look forward to hearing them. Mr. President, these are your opposition speakers for the night, and they are most welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to move now to my substantive case and suggest to you that we have a responsibility to take military action against ISIS if and only if doing so will result in a better situation than the current status quo. And I'll be making two arguments to suggest that it actually will not. First, military action won't solve the problem of ISIS, and moreover, our attempts to do that will come at a terrible human cost. But before moving on to explain why, I'll just quickly define what we on side proposition take to mean military action. We believe this includes, but need not be limited, to airstrikes carried out by Western pilots, drones manned by them as well, and the deployment of Western troops on the ground. Such action does not include the supplying of weaponry to Kurdish troops and other militia groups, since we don't believe that provision of arms can be equated with the deployment of them by Western agents. So let's move on to look at why military intervention will fail to solve the problem of ISIS. ISIS has emerged from the political turmoil, from the political turmoil of the Middle East. In addition to the failures of past Western interventions, there are three key reasons for this turmoil. First, decades of corrupt and inept autocracy with unpopular puppet dictators and rigged elections. Not that the Union would know anything about rigged elections. Second are the socio-economic conditions of the region that are averse to peaceful political order and are responsible for the creation of disenfranchised and disillusioned youth. And thirdly, the underlying sectarian and interstate tensions, in particular the Shia and Sunni divide, which ISIS trades off. ISIS is the product of these conditions and a symptom of bad governance. So the solution must be good governance. But can the West, through military action, achieve this in practice? Well, let's consider the possible ways that we could do this. First, I'd suggest there would be drones or airstrikes, but these are not the solution, for at least two main reasons. First, they only guarantee the destruction, not the construction, of those state institutions necessary to fill the power vacuum occupied by ISIS. No, thank you, sir. Consider, ladies and gentlemen, the example of Libya, where Western airstrikes were deployed and promised to deliver a utopian democracy, but have instead created a failed state where atrocities against humanity are committed now on a daily basis. Airstrikes and drone strikes cannot be the answer, and moreover, they confirm the rhetoric of ISIS about Western crusaders and thus provide a boon to recruitment and propaganda. So if airstrikes aren't the solution, what about boots on the ground? Again, we believe on side proposition that this cannot be the solution. First of all, the West has a tainted image that will alienate local support. Secondly, we have no regional or national legitimacy, and therefore our efforts to rebuild state institutions will fail. The people who actually live in these countries must be the agents of change. Thirdly, there is actually no political will in the West in the first place to achieve this and put those boots on the ground. And more importantly, there's certainly no political will to have a prolonged state-building program in the region or to combat the likely counter-insurgency. So not only will Western military intervention in all likelihood be unsuccessful, but we'd also suggest, moreover and more importantly, that it would come at a terrible human cost. Let's think about airstrikes, which we've already discussed. These have already been the cause and will be responsible for further civilian casualties. Think of the population of Raqqa, currently held hostage by ISIS as human shields. The horrendous loss of life that would necessarily result from an assault on this stronghold cannot be contemplated nor underestimated. Furthermore, by carrying out such airstrikes, we only exacerbate the pre-existing refugee crisis. And moreover, if we were to put boots on the ground, we would in all likelihood cause even more damage. We have a disastrous history of intervention, in particular in Iraq, where we've reshaped the political system in our own image and created a disenfranchised Sunni minority which now flock to fill the battalions of ISIS. How many lives, ladies and gentlemen, are we willing to sacrifice for the sake of an enterprise that most probably will fail? How many people will we see killed as we attempt to atone for past mistakes? The price is simply not worth paying. This need not mean that the West plays a passive role in defeating ISIS. There are a number of ways in which we can help, which include providing intelligence and weaponry on the ground to proven ISIS opponents like the Kurdish militia, and also in the West denying ISIS the media coverage it craves, and so combat homegrown radicalization. Ladies and gentlemen, our generation has never witnessed an evil quite like ISIS. Out of instinct, our response, born of shock, of disgust, and of empathy, is that something must be done. But in our attempt to do good, we should not, and we must not, pursue a strategy that will make things worse. We must learn the lessons of history and appreciate the deep human and moral cost of Western military action. There can be no responsibility to cause such harm when alternatives with less awful costs and better prospects of succeeding exist. In the aftermath of the devastating attacks last November, the most moving response was not the airstrikes launched by François Hollande, but the sight of millions of ordinary people joining hands in the streets of Paris, standing side by side and shoulder to shoulder against an evil that knows no humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with that same spirit of defiance, of resilience, and of solidarity that I stand before you today, and I am proud to propose. Thank you.